Can you believe that these are corrupt all hard natural stones? These hard rocks have become shapes that can be kneaded at will by sculptors. So don't be confused by your own eyes. Sculpture artists can make rocks seem soft and malleable, but nature can really corrupt hard rocks. It was well known the powerful force of weathering, which can break rocks and flatten mountains. Weathering is like a great sculptor who is always carving the earth and creating magnificent wonders. Whether it is the grotesque cliffs and steeps, or the thin sky that seems to be cut by a knife or an axe, and those labyrinth-like underground cast caves, as well as the mushroom stones standing proudly on the desert Gobi. They are all miracles created by weathering. Weathering is often understood simply as the result of thermal expansion and cold contraction. It can loosen the hard rock, collapse the cliff, and finally become a pile of scattered gravel. Thermal expansion and cold contraction are the most obvious and common weathering in nature. No matter how hard the rock is, it is hard to resist the change of day and night and the seasons, or the alternations of extreme heat and cold. For this reason, geologists have also created a terrible term, namely ice splitting, to describe the most typical example of this physical weathering. In addition to the physical weathering of thermal expansion and cold contraction, chemical action is also a common weathering phenomenon in nature. Its damage to rocks is often invisible. It is not difficult to imagine that once the minerals that make up rock change qualitatively due to chemical changes, the hard rock may lose the strength on which it stands. The most typical example is the formation of karst landscapes. The rocks in limestone areas are mainly composed of mineral calcium carbonate, with very active chemical properties and easy to be dissolved. When calcium carbonate encounters acid rainwater or groundwater, it is easy to be dissolved and carried away by flowing water, making the hard limestone disappear gradually. Therefore, karst landform is also called rock erosion landform. In the weathering process of natural rocks, in addition to obvious thermal expansion, cold contraction, and chemical weathering, there is also an invisible killer accomplice that can make hard rocks gradually corrupt and melt. However, this hidden killer accomplice is difficult to be seen and paid attention to. It is the long-neglected salt weathering. As we all know, the Earth's atmosphere often contains a variety of salts, such as sodium sulfate, sodium carbonate, magnesium sulfate, and so on, as well as the salt we use for flavoring, namely sodium chloride. They are all compounds that will dissolve quickly in water, but they can crystallize when they are dry. Don't underestimate these soluble and crystalline salts. They are accelerators and catalysts for rock physical weathering and invisible killers for destroying hard rocks. The reason why it is difficult to link the dissolution and crystallization of salt with the weathering of hard rocks in nature is that people do not understand the changes that occur in the process of salt dissolution and crystallization. When salt crystallizes, its volume will expand. Do not ignore this inconspicuous small volume change, which generates the most basic kinetic energy of salt weathering, causing the hard rock to become increasingly loose and collapse. The role of salt weathering depends on the expansion of the volume during crystallization, which expands the smallest cracks in the hard rock. After countless times of repeated crystallization, dissolution, and dissolution crystallization, the cracks in the rock are gradually widened and enlarged. In this way, the salt weathering greedily expands the space it occupies, making the mineral particles that make up the rock slowly separated and loosened, causing it to lose its original hardness and strength, just like gradually rotting away, peeling off layer by layer, and finally leaving behind a pile of fine sand and gravel. This is the salt weathering that can destroy rocks without any hesitation. The destruction speed and degree of salt weathering to rocks are no less than the terrible ice splitting. However, ice splitting only occurs in high and cold mountain areas, while salt weathering occurs everywhere in nature. Whether it is physical weathering, chemical weathering, or salt weathering, they are all powerful geological agents that destroy rocks and level mountains. At the same time, they are also sculptors who shape geological landscapes. Salt weathering, which was ignored by people in the past, has gradually come into people's view and received more attention under the introduction and guidance of geologists. Through the long years, salt weathering has shown its power. Like all weathering processes, the result of salt weathering shows the wonders and excellence of nature, create countless wonderful geological heritage landscapes, and provide people with opportunities to enjoy the landscape and the geological beauty. My friends, when you enjoy those strange and magnificent mountain and rock landscapes, please do consider, can you find any ubiquitous traces of salt weathering in their formation?